Hey, welcome to Mad Dog's After Show. You're along for the ride with the Mad Dog and Cole, the cleaner. Farrell.
A rattlesnake is technically an instrument.
I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could, and that's just what I'm doing.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait.
Man, what better way to bring in episode 91 than the great inspiring words of Mr. Evil Knievel, just flying through the air, living in the sunlight, enjoying life. And for all of you in the know, we're coming up, I believe, on the 50th anniversary of Mr. Evil Knievel's attempt at the Snake River Canyon. Be a big celebration out there. And, man, he would not have survived that crash without our great first responders for sure. And we want to give a special shout out to our first responders, all our fire, all our paramedics, all our police. We have great respect for all you do. Thank you, first responders. While we're thanking people, of course, thank you to our current military personnel all around the world, all our great American service people. Thank you so much. All our veterans, we appreciate and respect you, and a special shout out to those families that gave all the MIA and KIA. Dude, I am so stoked that we have Kicker Performance Audio along for more than 2 years now with us by our side, cranking out the tunes for all your 12-volt needs. Kicker Performance Audio. Find them online, kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio, and on Facebook, Kicker, every other Tuesday night on YouTube and Facebook on their live TV show, Kicker Unmasked Live. Of course, Bomber Eyewear, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear. Or you get them all combined together and get a pair of Mad Dog approved Bomber Eyewear in a polarized dark smoke lens boogie bomb that is ANSI 87 OSHA approved safety lens while you're at it. Hit up their website, bombereyewear.com. Over 40 styles of frames. I don't even know how many styles of lenses. You can find them on Instagram too, at Bomber Eyewear. Of course, our man Cole at the Premix Podcast, sharing all his passion for desert racing through the lens of a camera. If he's at your race, hit him up. Get some bangers from him. Slide into his DMs over at the Premix Podcast on Instagram. And if you have an event that you need emceed or a race that you need announced, or Slack Our race specifically, because that's one he needs to tick off his list, slide into his DMs, get him booked. He is booking for 2025 currently, but get him booked now on Instagram. The @ symbol ThePremixPodcast at the Premix Podcast. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film, getting all of our video production handled, making just magic out of the mess, and doing a great job. We're so thankful for Kelsey Morrell Film. You can find her on Instagram for all your film and still photo needs, from pre-production to post-production, commercials, private parties, whatever you need done. Hit her up on Instagram at Kelsey Morrell Film. Of course, Hey Keeks Marketing, doing our social media templates, backgrounds, helping us out with all that stuff. If you've got any kind of social media need or website need, yell Hey Keeks, or find her online, heykeeks.com, or on Instagram at Hey Keeks Marketing. Man, the one and only Robert Haslam FMX. Dude, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so this is to finally get schedules that work together and make this work.
Oh yeah, man, you've been so busy, and we'll get to that. I want to do for those of our fans, followers, and listeners who don't know who Robert Haslam is. Um, Robert and I worked together about 1,000 years ago in the Muzzies days. I think he was 12 back then. And he wrote freestyle on weekends and pursued his dream. I like to claim that I helped push him off the cliff to pursue his dream as a full-time freestyler. And I'll tell you what, he's been doing it full-time since what, 2014 now?
At some point there, yeah. It's been a while. Let me put it this way: I'm one of the old guys in the sport now.
Right. But for those of you unfamiliar, Robert also happens to be the very first human individual ever to backflip a snow bike in competition. And he did it on a little stage called Winter X Games and landed it. Nobody had ever done it before. And man, if you want my opinion, Robert was robbed of the gold medal by some people with big sponsors and more TV coverage, let's say. But he did back that up by landing a Superman backflip on a snow bike exactly right after that. So, man, double first in human history. He's been riding forever. He's also got an amazing family. I've been able to watch them grow up, and they're, like my own kids, just love them to death. Incredibly incredible wife, and a great godly man too, and huge respect for that, and a patriot, and God bless you for that. But man, Robert, I mean, we've known each other. I know some of your stories, but our listeners don't. And like, I think back to that. We'll get to the first Doomfest you rode, but let's get back to like what pulled the pin, what lit the firecracker the very first time. What was I gotta do stunts on dirt bikes.
I don't know if there was necessarily one pin that was pulled, but I'll say just very early on, I just like jumping dirt bikes, whether it was out in the woods, jumping tree roots. When I used to just go out in the woods on the weekends as a teenager and ride my bike, or, pop into a track once or twice a year and try to find the big jumps, or, just kind of became an obsession, really. I mean, everybody always dreams as a kid for, being an athlete, or, just kind of those job titles that always seem like they're way out of reach. And for me, I just never really believed that it was out of reach. And, fast forward, here we are now, I think 17 years later, after doing my first professional demo, still doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing, And did you have any family history in motorcycle racing, any background, or did you just decide you wanted to start riding dirt bikes and go from there?
I mean, kind of that hallmark story of, the dirt bike under the Christmas tree at 4 years old. And then it was just, with living in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get to ride year round. So it was summertime. Right. We go camping, and dad and uncles were into motorcycles, and so we would just go camping in the summer and take dirt bikes, and we'd take off in the woods, and that's what we did. And didn't really get too much more into it than that until I got my driver's license, when I was able to kind of go off on my own. And that's, I guess that could be the pull the pin moment, was getting my driver's license, when then I was able to start bouncing around, traveling a little bit locally, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
That's awesome. And I know you basically like. Do you remember the first time you hit a big ramp? Because folks, he is Pacific Northwest. I mean, Redmond, Oregon, basically is I think where most of it started, and it's not notoriously a huge area for producing freestyle riders.
No, not at all. I mean, I had tried over the years to find people to ride with that rode freestyle when freestyle back in that time was just crazy. It was exploding fast. The internet was new. And so there were some forums that I was on and just watching some of these guys that now I'm lucky enough to call friends or, people I've gotten to network with and mentor from. And so really just trying to do it on my own for the most part. Found a couple guys that were young like me that were wanting to get into it, that were actually up north of the border in Canada, which the weather up there is even worse off. And so we kind of started networking and they had a little more behind them as far as parental support and got a place to ride that just started from literally the ground up. I mean, you're talking just a hand-me-down takeoff ramp to probably the scariest dirt landing you've ever seen. But we were young and dumb. We didn't know any better, and we made it work. And that evolved over the years into bigger and better. And that helped propel all of our careers to, kind of just start on that path.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I don't know, you couldn't have been very old when you started with us at Muzzy's.
No, and when I started at Muzzy's, I had done, a handful of freestyle events at that point. I maybe had a few years under my belt, but I for sure wasn't regularly flipping or anything like that yet, and just trying to kind of figure out life. And so, me and my wife, we had just gotten married, and we moved from Northern California where I met her. Figured that we needed to pick a place to start. And so I was riding with someone that happened to live out of Central Oregon. We moved to Central Oregon, had a place to ride for a bit. And then lo and behold, that whole thing kind of fell apart. But it was good. It kind of got my feet wet into a little bit of what I would say now is more of what the industry is actually like once you're actually in it. There are definitely some bad eggs, but there are plenty of good eggs too.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I kind of just bounced around the Northwest and Northern California and just trying to carve a name for myself and still trying to stay true to who I am and not go the path that some of the other guys I know did.
Yeah. Do you remember the first show you did? Well, let's go back. What about the first jump where you actually threw something besides a dead sailor?
Ooh, yeah. Man, I can think back to being 17, 18 years old on a bike that at the time was the best thing ever, but looking back was just an absolute roach. And it was when I actually learned how to do heel clickers and no-footed cans, and it was just this dirt step up that we carved out at my grandparents' house all the way out in Ephrata, Washington. And you could say, I guess that was kind of the start of my freestyle career at that point. I had a buddy that was riding with me that day, and he was not very happy that I all of a sudden started figuring this stuff out, and he could not, for the life of him, get it down. And, from there, it kind of cascaded, and I had a buddy that back in Western Washington, out of high school, we built some jumps, and I learned Cordovas on another dirt jump that we carved out. Just anything and everything that I could make work without actually having the right tools to do it. I was trying to do it with every ounce of fiber in my body.
And, some of those tricks that you're talking about, specifically the Cordova, became one of your signature, and still is one of your signature tricks. And we're going to get into that part, but yeah, so you're bouncing around, you're doing shows. Do you remember the very first show you did? Like, did you have a case of the guts? I'm guessing you didn't eat Taco Bell before or anything.
The first show I actually did, I got called by some friends up in Canada. Same friends, a couple of them that I mentioned earlier, whose place we went to go ride at. At the time, they were doing some things across Canada, in British Columbia and Alberta and things. And they had a show actually up in Chilliwack, BC. And so they called me.
So I'm very familiar with.
It's one of those places you drive through across the one highway and you blink and you miss it.
Yeah, I went to junior high and high school there.
It's a fun place though. A lot of good memories after this first show. But the first show that I did, they called me up there, and again, I'll play that young and dumb card. They were timid to actually hit the ramp the first go around that day, and this was back in the metal landing days too. So we didn't have airbags like we do now. And I hit that thing first after watching them do run by after run by. I got tired of it, and so I hit it, and I completely missed the landing and broke my ankle that day. And so that was my experience with my very first show, very first mobile landing. Didn't end well.
Wow, that's a heck of a way to start. I think there's a lot of people that would go, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me at that point. But I know you well enough that it was like, how fast can I heal so I can get back on the bike?
Well, and that was just it. I mean, I had to drive home that day too, and I had a little single cab manual Toyota pickup, and so I drove home and I didn't even know that my ankle was actually broken. I just knew that it hurt. And by the time I got back across the border and had to stop for fuel, when I took that step out of the truck, I about fell to my face because it was so painful. And like you said, of course, at that point, it was, okay, it's broken. Now how long before I can get back on the bike and get back to this?
Right. So as that progressed and you did some more shows and, you had day jobs obviously for a while and was jumping on the weekends, and we're absolutely blessed. And for me, a special blessing for sure that, you came into the Muzzies family, and it was at a great time during Muzzies. And folks, let me tell you, the best parts coordinator I have ever had, and that ranges my 8+ years with Muzzy and my 13 years with Ford and my 11 years in independent automotive stuff. By far the best, most organized. Dude, you were meant for that role. It was a great fit at that time.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, I guess that's one quality that I think anybody that steps into a role like I have, where you try to be an athlete, is whatever you do in life, you do to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter what the job is. I mean, you could be scrubbing toilets, you can be flipping burgers at McDonald's, you could be a parts coordinator or an athlete. Like, you don't have a choice but to succeed. Like, to failure is not an option. And so any of those jobs that I've ever worked, I've always just put my head down and done the job and try to do it better than the person before me.
And you did, for sure. I mean, the things that we accomplished and the coordination, organization, made huge differences at, like I said, an incredible time at Muzzies. I mean, we were kings of off-road at the time, and anytime when you're a performance manufacturing company and you have at times 100+ of a single SKU on back order that takes roughly 50 SKUs to make that one SKU, for someone to keep that all together and be able to keep your, whatever we had in the back, 23 people all moving and all continuously stacking boxes and putting them on the shipping truck every day. A lot of that was thanks to the programs that you put in and the ways that you helped us coordinate all that. So, don't sell yourself short. You did a great job for sure, and I know that at that time we were able to. I am grateful daily that God blessed you with coming in to my life at that time. And I really saw a lot of, like, I knew that wasn't your end game, right? And you and I talked about that many times, that you wanted to ride, and you were riding weekend shows, and I think getting home at, like, midnight or 1 o'clock Sunday morning and come and be at work at 7:30 Monday morning.
Yeah, no, and I've done that so many times over the years with really any of the jobs I've had, especially, Muzzies, and then everything after that. It's, there's been times I look back, and I mean, I definitely think age played a factor there, because I don't think now at this point in my career that I could manage, 5 days a week and then be gone for a weekend, or, 4 days a week and working 10, 12-hour days just to make up that Friday before it happens, and then pin it out of town and be home late Sunday night just to turn around and do it all over again Monday. It was a lot, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I've had a lot of good conversations recently with friends that have been in the same spot that I am, that have moved on from freestyle or what have you, and just some of the good times that we did have. Like, it was stressful, but they always say that life's a journey, right? And you always think after the fact, you wish you would have sat in it a little bit more in that moment instead of looking so much at the end goal.
Yeah, but I mean, you were definitely driven to pursue writing freestyle for a living. Like, you wanted to do that full time. And, I really wanted to keep you there full time as much as I could. But in the same right, you, I wanted to see you succeed, and I wanted to see you follow your dreams. I had recently stepped out of, a very, very good position in the corporate world, for almost peanuts, but to do what I loved. Right. And so it seemed odd, but I was following my dreams. And, I know you and I talked about it, and then that day I was talking to Jesse, who was a coordinator for Doomfest, and I was like, "Hey, if you need a freestyle guy, we have one that works for us." And he was like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, yeah, I kind of need one." And I said, "Oh yeah, he's your guy. He's young. He's a family guy. He's clean cut, and I'm sure he rides a great show. I'd never seen you ride. I'd only heard you talk about it and seen pictures, and and I'll never forget. Jesse was like, "Does he backflip?" And I'm like, "Oh, he will for sure. Yeah." I remember the look on your face when I turned around and said, "Hey, I think I just got you Doomfest." And you were like, "Wow, really? That's cool." I'm like, "Yeah. Um, but you have to learn to backflip." And you were like, "Oh, yeah, in like 7 weeks, no problem," or something like that. Do you remember that conversation?
Vaguely, and I'll attest that to maybe hitting my head too many times. But yeah, I know at that point in time, I had done them, but definitely was not proficient in them whatsoever at that point. I'm still very, very new to it, and especially going into a show like Doomfest. I mean, I've it's crazy to think how many times I've ridden that event for different promoters over the years. And the last year or so, or this last year, not under my program, but the 2 years prior to that, I was fortunate enough to actually have it under my Jet City brand, which is cool. But I mean, everybody that's gone in there, I've told them, I said, man, this is no joke. Like, this show is one that'll challenge you. I mean, the wind is always a factor. And back then, we weren't jumping the big airbag landings that made it a lot easier. We were jumping the metal. There were some out there that weren't that great compared to others. None of them really were great, but I mean, basically cheese wedge to cheese wedge, trying to, you know, let's just use the analogy of trying to, like, you know, shoot fish in a barrel at some point when the wind picked up. So definitely that was a testing moment in my career for sure.
It was, you know, I definitely remember the look on your face, but you know, it all worked out. And this goes to how bad you wanted to pursue your dream. Is you went out and refined the backflip. And I think that first Doomfest show, if I remember right, you're riding with Marco and Colton.
Yeah. And they were both on quads too.
Yeah. And some sled guy that wasted his sled in practice.
Yeah, I think that may be the first and only time that one of those jump sleds has been in the dunes for a freestyle event. Because those things, they overheat quick, and those wheels and the skis that they have to run just to be able to go down the ramp runway don't like the sand at all. So he grenaded those things, and so he was out, and it was kind of a hot mess there for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know that you and I have ever really. I don't know that I've ever got your side of that show, but I want to share my side, but I want to hear your side first because, folks, one of the most humble people that you will ever meet is Robert Haslam. So let's hear your side of how that show went, because that was your first Doomfest, and you're riding with guys that have been flipping quads and doing, I mean, multi-time at the time gold medal, X Games gold medal winners, and the local guy Robert Haslam comes out on his dirt bike, and so all right, walk me through that.
Well, like I said, we showed up there, and I've never ridden out on the coast before prior to that. I mean, and I say on the coast, literally on the coast. So, I mean, you can stone's throw into the ocean. So, I mean, you're getting all kinds of weather that should not be in play when you're jumping dirt bikes 40 feet in the air. And, you know, I showed up and I jumped mobile landings before, but this was a new one, never seen it before. New takeoff, and it was a 6 foot wide one for these quads. And that ramp, I've jumped several over the years since that, but a lot of the time we build these ramps on the decking of it, we put sheet metal first and then this expanded metal for grip. And this ramp had no sheet metal on it. It was only expanded. So you could see right through it. So, I mean, there were factors that I was trying to process in my mind as I'm looking at this thing. And, you know, to be able to ride on the sand, we had plywood down with carpet over it. So it's kind of floating, and it's not solid like it would be on dirt or concrete. And then on top of that, we had just hurricane winds too. So, you know, on the ground, you're in a hurricane, you get in the air and it's even worse. And so, you know, I'm watching these two guys that are starting to get in the zone. And yeah, you talk about Colton Moore. I mean, the Moore brothers are legendary. And at that point, Colton was kind of on his A game at his peak in his career. And, just cool. I mean, I've, like you said, I'm humble, maybe to a fault. And so I've never really been that guy that gets too starstruck when I get around guys, but just more or less like just the opportunity to ride with guys of that caliber has always kind of piqued my interest. Because there's obviously a lot you can learn from guys that have done the things that they've done. And,
Sure.
You know, now I'm fortunate enough to say that I've kind of elevated myself to that level a bit and have done some of the things they've done, and it's cool. And now I've got other kids looking up to me. But, yeah, I remember going into that show, just jumping the ramp was scary. And, you know, like I said, I was still new to flipping, so I was nervous for that, but kind of parked it in the back of my head. And I remember riding into that show and thinking like, man, these guys haven't flipped yet. And these are supposed to be gnarly guys. Like they're out here jumping the ramp, doing tricks, but neither of them had flipped their quads yet. And then I see Marco start to size it up, and he's just straight jump after straight jump after straight jump. And you know, when you're new to flipping, you kind of have what I would call kind of just like a stance on the bike hitting the ramp. Like you can tell when someone's thinking about it. And that's kind of where Marco had kind of reverted to on this setup, trying to just get in that space and kind of practice mentally of where you're going to pull on the ramp and get this flip figured out. So then of course that got me thinking about it, and I'm all, man, I don't know, like these guys aren't doing it. Like it's pretty bad out here. And, you know, to go back to that story about my first demo, I kind of honestly just got tired of watching these guys straight jump the ramp and not doing anything. And so then it got to where I was all, well, all right, I'm going to jump this a few more times. And if it feels good, I'm going to come back around and I'm just going to pull for one. And that's exactly what happened. I came around a couple times, and on the third one, I looked again, Marco hit it and he hadn't pulled back yet. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to be the first one to do it here. And came into the ramp, gave it a good tug, and everything went well. And the rest is history after that.
Yeah, that was an incredible moment for me, not only in pride. I almost threw up watching you. Obviously, I felt very vested in you. But the other thing on that, and you hit it a little bit, but the wind was they had changed directions from the traditional direction that they were jumping, and you were actually jumping into the wind. The wind was sustained like 14 with gusts to like 20 plus. It was a really low fog deck, and these guys had done some, you know, for the quality of riders they were. Obviously, they were shook by the conditions. Quads act different in the wind than bikes do, given for sure. But the level of tricks that they were throwing were entry level, in my opinion, to an extent. I mean, you're not going to catch me up there doing any of it, but you know, and so folks, for y'all, imagine this: you've got two world-renowned freestyle guys. One that's like Robert said, you know, Colton is at the pinnacle. I mean, he's the greatest of the greats when it comes to quads at the time, really. And they run a few. I think Marco ran about 4 or 5, maybe 6. You know, just total straight dead stick up and down, and you know, trying to get a feel. And Robert come out and threw a Cordova. See, I remember this details, buddy. Of course, I haven't hit my head quite as many times since then as you have. Um, but you threw a Cordova first. You did, I think, 2 runs just to catch distance. Threw a Cordova. The fans, there's probably, I don't know, what do you think, 5,000-6,000 people out there, pretty easily. Just went crazy, right? He comes, Marco went, another dead sailor. Colton went, and I think he threw a like a no-footed can or something like that. Robert did the what they call the dead body, and man, it was like the extension. Nobody in the industry was doing a dead body that way, with that extension and that level of commitment, anywhere in the industry that I'd seen at the time. And the fans just went nuts. And they cycled through again, and Robert just pitches the backflip. And everybody lost their freaking minds. And it was a great show, you know. Robert ended up pulling, I think, 6 backflips during that show. Um, and man, it saved the show that day. It really did. It was, it saved the whole Doomfest freestyle show and legacy as far as I'm concerned that day. Just you going, well, here we go. Let's see what happens, And so, um, man, fast forward from there, like your career just started taking off. You started getting more and more work. And of course, sad day for me when you left Muzzies, but happy day for me because you were going full-time freestyling. And I don't think there's anywhere on the West Coast that you haven't ridden, is there?
Oh man, honestly, Lauren, I wish, and I've talked with friends about this because I've seen some guys that, of course, I didn't have, a house like I do now that I've been in for 10 years or so now. But one of those big maps on the wall to have a push pin in everywhere I've been.
Right.
It'd be hard to really narrow down exactly where I've been, but yeah, I mean, I can drive I-5 from Canada to Mexico in my sleep. I mean, it's pretty crazy all the places that I've gotten to go and see and perform at just because of being on a motorcycle. I mean, you think about a lot of people. There's plenty of people that never really leave their hometown, let alone their home state or their country. And I've been fortunate enough to do all of that just because of riding a dirt bike.
Yeah, I know, you just kept honing your craft, getting better, getting smoother. I'm not sure that there's anybody, there's two tricks that you do that I'm not sure there's anybody in the industry now that still, after all these years, can do them as good as you. And that's the dead body and the I call it the scorpion. It's like almost your kiss of death, basically. But everybody everybody in the industry calls you Gumby.
Yeah, there's one other guy that's still riding that has more of a Gumby style, and he kind of was the original Gumby. But just like I said earlier, these guys that you look up to, I mean, he's a friend, he's a colleague. I've ridden plenty of shows with him. I actually was just messaging him today about something just randomly on social media. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like when I set out to do this, like I definitely was trying to carve my own way. I didn't want to look like everybody else. I didn't want to act like everybody else. And then on the bike too, like I wanted to stand out. And so, I was gifted this ability to be, super overly flexible. And that resulted in having a style that most guys don't have, and still to this day kind of stands out, which is cool. And, kind of a testament to still be doing it that way.
Yeah, for sure. And going into that limber and all that, still to this day, probably one of the top 3 in the country in over the bar tricks. I mean, there's just I know there's some other guys coming up, and some other guys that are doing pretty clean over the bar tricks now, but for years have been the cleanest over the bar tricks in the country, possibly in the world, really, in my opinion. I mean, for reals, it's so clean, so tight, so precise. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, I still got there's young kids that I've met over the last couple of years that are just getting into the sport, or maybe been in the sport for a bit, and it's like when I started. These are the kids that have seen me, at when they were younger, before they were on a dirt bike doing what we're doing now. And, you know, they're looking up to what I've done or what I do. And it's cool. It's kind of a weird place to be that guy in the sport now. Because I definitely don't really see myself in that light. I mean, I still feel like I'm a kid at heart and I'm young, but my body reminds me otherwise, and kind of puts me in my place. But yeah, no, it's I don't know, man. I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to still be doing what I'm doing, and at the level that I'm doing it. On top of that,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, something that you touched on just a couple of minutes ago that I want to kind of sidetrack on is, you know, um, your not only your abilities in the air, your abilities over the bars, your God-given gift to be flexible and all that, but you wanting to be different than what basically anybody else in the industry, which you have definitely achieved and accomplished. And really, back when you started full time, and you and I had talked about this even then, about bringing a different image to freestyle, because I mean, let's face it, back in those earlier days, freestyle didn't have a very clean image. And you know, I don't want to go into any of that or any of the images that any of the people, but it didn't have a positive influence type personality for kids, if you know what I mean.
yeah, no, and when people found out that I rode motorcycles, and then on top of that rode freestyle motocross, you know, they kind of give you the up and down, like, you definitely don't fit the mold here. Because like you said, there was a definite, especially when I started, you know, we'll just call it a Motley Crue type persona, right? And
Yes.
that just was never my thing, never really wanted to be my thing. And so even, you know, years down the road, when Miranda and I met and got married, it was just a family thing. Like, our kids have grown up around it. As you know, they've been to Dune Fest long after Dad first went to Dune Fest, and that's just us. That's just how we are. And even to this day, there's still some local gigs I have up here that people are still just, you know, they're excited to see us, you know, if they've met us over the years, still doing this in this capacity, or maybe people that never met us, just seeing us do something different against the grain as a family, and, you know, being all about the family aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there again, your humbleness comes out. There was very few, if any, I would say very few, because there's a couple riders that are pretty clean cut, that are got a few years on you yet, that are still riding also, like Cody Elkins and you know, Cowboy Kenny. Um, and I can't believe those guys are still riding, but you know, it's got to be good for you to see those guys who, you know, Cody's what, 99, 98, and he's still riding. So, you know, you got 50 years left. But no, seriously, Cody's going to kill me when he hears this.
Oh, trust me, you're good. Because any of us, anytime that we talk to him or we get back around him, we always have to remind him that he's still the old guy. And so I'm thrilled that he's still doing this, and he's got a few years on me, because it makes me feel, you know, that I'm still doing okay.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I mean, there was, you know, you really started a different trend in freestyle, that a lot of the mainstream freestylists maybe didn't endorse or didn't embrace, but you brought the whole family atmosphere in, and the community should really be thanking you, because in my opinion, that's part of what helped save freestyle. not everybody wants a bunch of dirt bags at their event jumping ramps. We don't care how good they are. We don't want to put up with the BS, And so, I mean, you really not only carved out a niche for yourself, but started to open the eyes of even parents, like you said, of kids that are riding now going, oh, well, Haslam's not a douchebag. I don't want my kid to be a douchebag. He wants to ride freestyle. Well, look at Haslam. Let's hook him up with him or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, and that definitely was, I would say was probably, kind of a thorn in my side initially especially when I started going off and trying to do my own event. When I started buying the equipment and starting to hit the Northwest, it was trying to break that stigma. Whether there's been other outfits that have come up here and done things or try to do things, or just from what some of these different promoters and fair boards and things had seen online or on TV, that it was a challenge. I mean, it's still a challenge. There's still plenty of people that try to hold on to how freestyle used to be. And I mean, a lot farther and fewer than it used to be for sure. But
right.
Yeah, it's freestyle and racing have always been very, very different.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and you really brought that. And then as you graduated through, I wouldn't really say graduated, but as you refined and you did more and more and more shows, we were able to, Doomfest became really a staple for you. And you became a staple for Doomfest. And the people there, not only the hometown boy, but I mean, I will not forget. I know you'd done several Doomfests, and they'd had a disastrous attempt at a freestyle show the year before, and I think through some contacts, I kind of hopefully helped you get back in. With the promoter at that time who had changed, and get back to Doomfest. And the whole thing was, hey, he's a family guy. You had a little girl and a baby boy at the time, right? So it's like we're going to bring a whole different deal to Doomfest. We're going to get rid of what you had last year and the scars that you still have from last year. And we're going to show you something different. And man, for me, that was an honor to work with you on that first show. That was the first time I ever got to be on the big stage behind the mic for one of your freestyle shows. And I'm not going to lie, it was a lot easier for me than it was watching. It was a lot easier on my guts. I was nervous for a second before the bikes fired up, and then I was all in, right? Watching your shows in the past, like, man, I would have a case of guts so bad that you thought I ate, $50 at Taco Bell the night before. Used to make me so nervous. I was so scared for you. And, but, we were able to put that together, and that was really a paradigm breaker, I think, at that point, that this is a legit way of life. This is like a legit deal, right? It was under Jet City, I think, then, or Haslam FMX before Jet City. I can't remember, but you brought something that people hadn't seen since the last time you jumped, and that was a non-dirtbag freestyle guy. And you brought another non-dirtbag with you, which we're going to get to that story in a second. But I mean, did you feel at the time the impact that you were making, or were you even trying to make an impact, or were you just trying to ride bikes and do your thing?
I would say honestly, just the latter. I mean, even to this day, I mean, what keeps me going is I'm still just the same guy that started out when I was young, just wanted to ride a bike, right? Like, I mean, I feel like that's kind of the case with anything I've done in life. It's like the minute that you start wavering on integrity and who you are at your core and start changing who you are is probably when you start hanging it up, whatever it is you're doing. And so, I mean, really, that's kind of been my approach over the years for everything, whether it was first starting out, that Dune Fest show you're mentioning, or X Games or anything like that. It's just go there, be authentic, be me, do me, and really just trying to compete against myself in all aspects too. And just try to be better. So I know like that Dune Fest show, I think was the first time that we ever brought an airbag landing there too.
Yes.
I think it was the first time that we did night shows because we were trying to work with the weather. And so, I mean, that year was the year after I did the X Games and had medaled and all that. And, it was, I'd say that was probably the pinnacle of my career to this extent, right? Like just everything that happened in that short window of time, it was just kind of finally starting to feel the fruit of all the labor over the years and just having a blast doing it. I mean, I had my kids there with me. I had a solid group of guys riding with me. I mean, we were just having a blast, just doing what we always wanted to do as kids.
Yeah, I will never forget, you showed up and your other rider showed up to that show. And this guy in like low rider skinny jeans and tattoos everywhere comes walking up. And I'm like, wow, like we sold this whole show on like the family deal. Did Robert miss the memo or something? Like, and of course, the infamous and ultimately insane Jared LaRue. And dude, the nicest. I mean, I have a picture of him and your oldest daughter walking up to the ramp, and he's holding hands, and I think she's carrying a bullfrog, and like she couldn't have been 3, maybe 4 years old. Dude, I cherish that picture. Every time I see it, I just melt, because it's like I see Jared with his tats and his skinny jeans and halfway falling off his ass. And I'm like, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? And then he's just, and shame on me, right? Shame on me, because once I got to know him, he's just like, just great guy, loves kids, loves families, and loves to ride bikes just like you. And so that show was insanely good. And really, I mean, like you said, that whole year, I was honored to be able to help you kind of get some stuff together to be able to go to X. And when you told me you were you were trying out for Winter X Games, I was like, all right, cool. And whatever gave you the idea, like, heck yeah, let's just go huck a snow bike.
It was honestly kind of I don't want to say by accident, but it really wasn't even in the forefront of my mind. I mean, it wasn't a thing up until literally right before it was. I think that year before, Jackson Strong had gone and cut one of these timber sleds, which were still fairly new at the time, this whole snow bike industry, cut one up and did a freestyle demo that didn't really get a whole lot of traction that year. And at that point, my mind had started shifting from demo guy that I'd been doing forever to, hey, maybe there's a chance I could try and tackle some of these bigger tricks and maybe become a contest guy. And I was training and riding all the time up at my buddy's place up there in Camp H, which at that time I will say was probably the absolute elite place if you wanted to ride freestyle on the globe. I mean, literally everything you could ever want or need to be good at riding a dirt bike was up there. And so, you know, we had access to new ramps before anybody else had them. Right when airbags started coming out, we had access to all these crazy new ways to train that nobody else had access to. We obviously had the foam pit. We had a full freestyle course, motocross tracks, everything. And so, I mean, I was just on a different level at that point. Like when I say like I was at the pinnacle of my career, I mean it. Like, I mean, I was at one point contemplating doing double backflips that year, right before Winter X let up. And I felt really confident that I could get them and learn them. And this was around, let's say, end of September, beginning October timeframe, 2017, I believe. And so we had just gotten through a pretty busy demo season. And so I was spending a couple months up there at Camp H, just kind of riding out the rest of the year, just getting some more training in, just trying to stay on the bike, learn some things. And that's when this whole double backflip thing came around, et cetera, et cetera. And then we kind of caught wind of Winter X Games potentially bringing this new sport to the stage based on what Jackson Strong had done the year before. And just knowing the undertaking that it was figuratively, let's just say financially cost, right? I just knew that I didn't have the tools or the sponsors to make it happen. My buddy Kyle, on the other hand, at that point was with Red Bull. And so he had Red Bull backing him, and they were like, we want you to do this. This is a new event. This is a great way for us to debut you. And so he was getting all fired up about it and, you know, starting to work on trying to modify one of these snow bike kits. And, you know, so I just looked at it and I was like, I mean, that's cool, man. Like, I wish you the best. I'd never even seen a snow bike at that point. So I really didn't even know what it entailed. But I had figured, you know, I'm going to park everything for this year and just call it a win for 2017. Beginning of 2018, I knew there was some tourists firing up, and that was my plan. I was just going to kind of, you know, not try to do too much to hurt myself, and then roll into 2018 and hit it just ridiculously hard. Knowing Summer X was going to be coming up in June, July timeframe, I figured if I could go learn double flips or some front flips or things like that, like I had a chance to maybe go to Best Trick there. Well, right. Then I got home and we got into, you know, maybe mid-October or so. And I started talking to my buddy Kyle a bit more, and he started telling me like, hey man, like there's a good opportunity with this event. Like there's not really anybody that's signing up for it right now. And you know, I think you got a good chance, especially with the place up here to train. Like if you wanted to try and do this, like I think you could probably pull it off. And so that kind of got the gears turning a little bit. But still financially, I'm like, I just don't see how this is plausible. I mean, I had to basically go spend $6,000 on a brand new snow bike kit in a crate just to turn around and cut the thing all up into pieces and try to make it work into a short kit, which I'm like, I don't have $6,000 to gamble right now. And, so then I was talking to a buddy of mine from high school who we've always kind of all dreamed about, like, you know, what it would look like for any of us to ride dirt bikes for a living. And I was doing it. And, you know, he, at that point, he was like, I have the money. He's like, you can't miss this opportunity. So he fronted the money and bought me this snow bike kit. And that's basically when I was all, well, there's no going back now. And so from that moment on, I basically lived up at Camp H in Canada through just a brutal winter that year, brutal winter, for, you know, probably like a month and a half, 2 months leading up to the holidays, like Christmas time. Just
I remember that.
Beating the living crap out of myself in the foam pit. And foam pits in the summer aren't fun, but you start going to jump in one in the winter time when you've got foam cubes that are soaked and frozen, and it's, you know, minus 10 degrees up in Canada. It's nuts. It's a whole different ball game. And so we got through that, and I got home, I think right before my birthday, which is right before the holidays there, and didn't know what that was going to look like. I mean, I had no idea if people were, you know, working and training like we were, where we were at with everything. I sent in my videos like I was supposed to. And then right before Christmas, I get an email with that. I'll never forget it because that was my bucket list item for my career, was to get that email from X Games that said, congratulations, you're invited. Never thought it would be Winter X. I thought it'd be summer if I could do it. But there it was. I got this email and it just said, congratulations, Robert Haslam. You're invited. Snowbike Fest Trick, Winter X Games Aspen 2018. And it was just a game changer for me at that point. I mean, I went up after Christmas, back up to Camp H for another month and just literally grinded out. I mean, the hardest I've probably ever worked in my life when it comes to trying to get somewhere with the sport. I mean, we were in the foam pit in the morning and in the evening, and then during the afternoon, we were working on bikes. We were working out. We were doing all the things that as a top tier athlete you do just to get in shape for this event. And, you know, the rest is kind of history from there. I mean, people saw what happened on TV, and things when we got there weren't where they were supposed to be for where we trained. And we were way ahead of the curve, way more prepared than everybody else, including some of these top tier guys that I used to look up to. And it kind of bit me a little bit. And, you know, I was there for a while about it. And just like you said, I mean, I was so prepared. I had tricks in the bag that I could only do at the set gap that the ramp was supposed to be at. And because the ramp got pushed in closer because these guys weren't prepared, I couldn't do those tricks. I would have literally just grenaded myself. And, you know, it's hard to sit here and not think what could have been, what should have been. But, you know, at the end of the day, we still showed up, put on a face. I was still the same person that I am today, just smiling, having a great time, and did it for the hometown kid.
I've got some great pictures I watched that live on TV, and man, I was snapping pictures the whole time, and it was, yeah, it was exciting. You know, it was great to watch. I had the gut gurgles again, like I'd never had before. You know, and I've been in contact with you, and you had told me what was going on with the ramp prep and some of the stuff that, you know, in my opinion, was less than professional behavior by professionals. And when there's an agreed upon gap, I don't, you know, I don't care if you're chicken. That's the gap it's supposed to be at. But if you're a big name, you got a lot more, you know, swing in the punch, I guess. So, yeah, I've often thought about that, but in the same right, you know, you freaking came out of nowhere, in my opinion, laid down the most dangerous trick of anybody, landed it, and yeah, you know, okay, it went to, you know, a high profile energy drink that starts with an M athlete, that it shouldn't have really, for a trick he'd done probably 10,000 times on dirt, which granted, there's a difference, dirt to snowbank, but there was no inversion. You were the only one that was inverted in the whole top three. So that being said, it is what it is. You still got that medal. You still got the guitar. And, dude, it was, you know, there's what they say, 420,000 people worldwide watch that competition. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. The hometown kid from the PNW went to X Games, and, you know, walked out with a medal. So that really, to be classified, you know, and that's to your humbleness, because you didn't bring this part up. They only took 10 to the event. That was the top 10 freestyle riders basically in the country that could ride a snow bike. And you finished in the top 3, you know? So, yeah, man, you killed it. You killed it. It was so exciting. And I was so happy for you. And, fast forward, you had the tour of the whole next year. I think you went overseas. Um, you rode in South America. And then, of course, being a medal winner, you had the invite back and some of the crazy stuff you were working on leading up to Winter X the next year that I don't know if you want to go into or not, but Winter X the next year, the ramp situation and everything was even worse.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was polar opposite of the previous year. I mean, I was on a different equipment. I had gotten a company to actually help me out. So they built this crazy looking kit that looked different than anybody else's. And unfortunately, they kind of just took the wheel and built this thing and said, "Here you go," and it didn't work whatsoever for what we needed it to. And so we ended up having to dissect this thing while we were up there and basically try to build something else out of it in the time frame that we didn't have to learn tricks on it. And so that was a mess. And I ended up getting hurt that year because of things not working. I got pinned up under the bike in the foam pit and tweaked my knee really, really bad. And that was about 2 weeks out from actual date of X Games. And at that point, I still didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I had to do something to get back there. And so, I mean,
I remember that phone call.
It was just fighting the uphill battle of all uphill battles just to make it back there. I mean, at that point, I did at least have some sponsors that were helping me out. I had people that were behind me. So, I mean, financially, I was in a better place than I was the year before. But it was survival mode that year. And it started off on a high note. I mean, when I realized that kit it wouldn't flip. I could not get the thing to backflip for the life of me. Like, it just would not. And that was the problem. And I had been thinking leading up to that, like, I wonder if front flips are possible. Because at this point, there were guys on dirt bikes that were doing them, but it was still, I mean, we're talking maybe a couple years in, if that they were doing them on dirt bikes. And the one thing I did have in that kit that nobody else had was a rebound control that had probably 25 to 30 clicks of rebound. And so I thought, well, I can't get this thing to go backwards. We'll try and go frontwards. And so I just sped the rebound up all the way to where I dang near broke the screw off and just gave it hell in the foam pit. And lo and behold, I got the first one a little more than halfway around. And then after that, a couple more closer than that. I think at that, shortly thereafter, I think I did get one or two maybe around in the foam pit that I probably would have landed. But I also didn't want to go into X Games with only that in the bag. Like, I wanted to have some sort of backup just based on how the year before went. Like, I wasn't in a position to be stupid and go there and say, this is all I have. The ramp's not right. I can't do it. And any of us that have been there know, like, there's been guys in the past, if you don't do it, you're never getting an invite back. So that was in my head. And I thought, well, if I can get a backup trick just to have and then plan on maybe doing the front flip, then at least I've got a couple different options here. And it just was the year that didn't happen. I'm just going to put it that way. I had a lot of high hopes, a lot of expectations that I set the bar high, that it was just everything that there's nothing I could do. It was out of my control.
Yeah, that was a tough one for sure. But perseverance, and you are out still cranking it out almost every weekend of the year. Between now, I mean, fast forward from there, you've ridden what, Africa, the Middle East, South America, Canada, Mexico, USA. Where else?
Been down to the Caribbean. Trying to think where else I've been. Like I said, this is one of those things. I wish I had a map of all these places.
Right.
I mean, I definitely haven't traveled international as much as as much as some guys have. Jared, for instance, that guy, I swear it's like he's across the pond every other week or every few weeks at this point in his career. It's crazy, but also it's tough when you have a family. Like I wouldn't want to be gone that much. I mean, I'm grateful for the traveling I did get to do, but anymore, the travel weighs on you. Anybody that's done this in this capacity or just travel for work in general knows how taxing it can be to just be on the road away from family and friends. And I mean, it is your lifestyle. There's you don't have a normal life. You don't get to come home during the week and plug back into get-togethers and birthdays. I mean, you're missing all that stuff. So it's been good, but I'm glad that a lot of that's behind me at this point, and I'm able to be home during the week and be the guy that I need to be back home.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of home, your beautiful wife, and I remember when she was pregnant for the first time. You were still working with me at Muzzy's, and we were all excited. And then the second time seemed like it was pushing up on Doomfest or right after Doomfest that Fox was born, something like that. And then it's like, hey, yeah, we're pregnant again. And I'm like, oh, wow, congratulations. So awesome. Yeah, I might not be able to ride Doomfest. It depends on when the baby's born. I'm starting to go, okay, what's, I'm trying not to make like the 9-month back determination from Doomfest, but it's wintertime. So I'm just going to say that. But, people got to stay warm. And then, hey, yeah, we're pregnant again. And so, yeah, beautiful, amazing family. And so blessed with that too, man. It's like, I don't blame you for not wanting to do a lot of the overseas stuff. You've got your compound up there. You're building ramps for other guys now. You're coaching guys, and it's a real honor that I get to occasionally work events where one of the multiple guys that you've coached and brought along ends up riding. And it's really cool because it's always that link back to I remember when, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said earlier, I mean, there's a lot of guys now that I've been fortunate enough to come across that they pick my brain, they ask questions, and then you see them pop up at an event or what have you, and I don't know, it's just talking to guys like Jared or even Cody Elkins or some of these other guys that I've grown up and ridden with. It is crazy to reflect on everything that we've done and the places we've been and the people we've met and, realize like just how long we've been in this and how fortunate we are to have been doing this as long as we have. I mean, because there's been plenty of guys over the years that have gotten hurt really bad. There's been several guys that have unfortunately passed away from the sport. And, this isn't an old guy sport, and it's definitely not something that I would have anticipated being in it as long as I am at this point. 17 years doing anything is a long time, let alone as a professional athlete riding motocross, probably one of the most dangerous sports on the planet.
Yeah, by far. I was just thinking to myself, this isn't golf. Like, if you screw up playing golf, you pull a back muscle, right? If you screw up at what you're doing, it could be life threatening for sure.
Yeah.
And you guys go out and do it consistently and amazingly beautifully. And it's just, it blows me away because, the people respond. It's so incredible to see people's response to what you're doing. And yet you're not like um, I mean, you're taking chances like it's your life, right? But in the same right, you don't make it 17 years by being stupid.
No, definitely. That's one of those common questions. Even at these shows that I'm doing now from parents and kids is, and none of us like it, but it's how many bones do you broke, right? And my response anymore is not as many as most. And that, just like you said, that's from, being as smart as you can within what we are able to be, not taking unnecessary risks, not being that guy that's out there winging it and riding over your head when you shouldn't be. And it's easy to get in that space. I mean, you get, spike of adrenaline, or you're having fun with the boys, and it's a good event, and maybe you try to do something that you haven't done in years. It's just never. I mean, I've done that a few times over the years, and after the fact realized real quick that I shouldn't have. But I know plenty of guys that are just out there just winging it weekend after weekend, and you try to tell them, man, that's not the way to do this if you're trying to be in the spinning length of time.
Right. Yeah. No, and I've seen that and seen the results of it too, at events, and it's like, whew, you can't do this. You can't ride this way for very long, and I think about that one show that you rode at Doomfest, and there was a kid riding there. That was the year before you promoted your own, and he literally, we had called the show got called short because he kept landing so deep. He blew out the plywood on the landing, and it was frightening. And dangerous, and dangerous for everyone, not just the rider, but you guys and fans and everything else. But I feel, I don't know what it takes to master the zen of being able to backflip a 75 gap consistently without taking chances, right? I mean, that's Jedi status stuff.
Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation with Jared the other day about how many backflips I've actually done over the years. Because I did my first one in 2011, and it's 2024 now, so it's been well over a decade of doing this, and I don't know. It'd be interesting to know that number, but I mean, it's just dare I say it's second nature anymore. I mean, the first one of the day, any given weekend, even if it's the same bike, same ramp, like it still, gets your heart going after not doing it for a week. But yeah, it's weird to think that that's just my normal.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I have so many good memories of you riding, and I'm hoping to be able to get to another one of your shows sometime in the next 10 years before you decide to hang it up, but or 15 years, whatever. But but I will always remember the man. It must have been the what would it have been? 2021 Doomfest, and TPQ and I were announcing, and I think you had Jared, Cody. I think you had Cody and Cody. I think you had Cody Elkins and Cody McDonough.
Yeah. Well, that was the year we had 4.
Yeah, and we were, TPQ is a great announcer and awesome dude, and we were kind of talking. You guys were hitting your gap and getting the feel, and I'm standing up on the main stage looking straight across at the gap, and I'm talking about what you guys are doing as far as taking a couple of hits to kind of get your feel for the distance and stuff. And man, you come out for your second test hit, and just throw a full monster huge backflip, and midstream you turn your head and you're looking right at me on the stage, and I was like I'm going, all right, here comes Robert. He's going to do, he'll take a couple more hits here to get his distance and get feeling good. And wow, I guess he feels all right. That was, dude, that was definitely a highlight of my entire life. And I can't thank you enough for that, but you also scared the crap out of me.
I think that's just more that, there's a time and a place, I guess, but, we had a good group of guys. We had a solid crew. And that year, I think, was one of the years where somehow we didn't have hurricane force winds either. So we got fortunate there, and it was just a good time. I mean, that was definitely probably one of the better years that we did that one.
For sure. That was a lot of fun. And man, it's now you're still out there. You're hitting how many different tours are you doing now a year? So are you doing monster trucks? Is it the Hot Wheels monster truck? Or
so I mean, last year should have been a full year prior to me getting injured the second half, but the last, I guess, 2.5 years now I've been with this the Hot Wheels monster truck program. And it's been good. I actually told someone the other day, I was like, it's weird because it's consistent. And they're like, freestyle is consistent? And I said, yeah, for the first time ever, it's consistent. And it's honestly, it's about as easy as it gets for any of us that have been doing this forever. I mean, they book flights for us, they get hotels for us. So literally, we're currently on the West Coast tour right now. And I think we're about, maybe 5 or 6 weeks in of an 18-week tour. And it's literally every weekend going into the holidays. So I'm out on Friday mornings. I get dropped off at the airport and I'm home either Sunday night or Monday morning, home for the week and then back out again. So, I mean, I'm living out of a duffel bag and a backpack for the weekend and then come home, switch gears back into dad mode and get stuff done here at the house, play around in the shop, and then just to get back out in the airplane and go.
Wow. That's amazing, but it's got to be fulfilling because if you look back to when you were scraping to get weekend shows and having to work a full-time job, you just said you're at what, show 7 of 18 weeks?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, hallelujah and pass the gravy, right?
Yeah. No, it's I don't know. It's definitely, I'm riding on a little bit of that seniority at this point, and I'm okay with it for whatever this looks like going forward. I mean, I don't really like to look too far forward anymore doing this.
Right.
I mean, years ago it was forecasting out, maybe 2 more years, maybe 4 more years. And, after COVID, things got real weird with everything, including the motorsports industry was hit super hard, as you know. But yeah, I mean, just every weekend that I'm able to go out and do it, I kind of just take it week by week, and kind of see where it goes. So I've kind of given myself, at least the rest of this year and kind of see how I'm feeling at the end of all this. And I know that this tour is probably going to keep going for quite a while. So there's potential to jump back on in January and keep going. But, even that, it's having almost a pretty set schedule. It's still tough to be away and sleep in a different bed every weekend in a hotel somewhere. And
for sure, we've talked about that multiple times on the show because I cover a lot of my road trips and trips and hotels and rental cars and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I totally know what you feel. But man, 17 years.
Yeah.
Flying through the air.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. I don't know too many other guys that they're still doing this long. There's plenty of guys that have hung it up and called it quits and they're on to other things. And there's some guys that are still, they'll do a show here or there, but to still be doing it full time 17 years later is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. That is nuts. I know you're pushed up on time. I know you got some stuff you got to do. Couple of things. One, sponsors. I know you
Yeah.
got to, well, first, Hot Wheels Monster Truck Tour, look it up, Google it, West Coast Tour, wherever town's closest to you, go buy your tickets, go down to the pit party, tell Robert, I heard you on the after show. I just want to meet you because he's worth meeting. One of the greatest guys I know. So, okay, sponsors.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, you know, like I said, COVID kind of really put a damper on my career as far as sponsors go. I mean, I had some really, really good momentum right before that, and I started hitting that kind of pinnacle where, you know, I had some companies stepping up and actually, you know, kind of propelling me into that next step in my career where I was getting some salaries and things, and it was definitely helping. But I will say that, you know, through that, there are a couple really solid companies that have stuck by me. Kicker obviously is one of them. And Lauren, you've got the Kicker branding loud and proud right now. I can't say enough about those guys. They're great. They've helped me out with, you know, even local events, helping me, you know, with some budgets and things like that and products and advertisement. So that's been awesome. And then Fly Racing too. You know, they went through a little bit of a kind of tumultuous time where they went a little more corporate and some things changed, but you know, I've basically been in fly gear pretty much, I'd say 95% of my career. And so I'm stoked to still be with them and, you know, carrying that out through the end of whatever this looks like too.
Yeah, I know Fly has been with you forever. They're lucky to have you, you know. I know they kind of wanted that you know, that clean cut look when you first started. I don't think they were too crazy about. It's like, well, I don't know, freestyle, you know, but man, you have been a staple with them forever and you've done wonders for them. And you know, I can tell you that, you know, I wear Fly because of you. So you know, you and BC thankfully have helped me out with Fly, and I like their product, and I would definitely have more when I need more. But and Kicker, I mean, it just goes. I talk about them all the time. They are one of our primary sponsors on the show, and we're just so grateful to have them. So I totally get you're part of that family for sure. Um, and dude, you've been through the gauntlet. I mean, you really have, and persevered in the positive, always chasing the dream, and living the dream really. And
Yeah.
you know, it's man, I'm super grateful for your positive influence on freestyle and moto, and really being one of the main players in changing the image, you know, and you should be really proud of that. I know you don't look at yourself as that way, but there's a lot of us out there that do, that know, and that do. So, and we're grateful too, because really changing the image of freestyle has, you know, it's like I don't even know what you want to call it. It's a reciprocal thing. Changing the image has led it to be more popular at these family events, which in turn has kept guys like you in more work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely, I will say that you're not wrong there. And I will take that with everything you're throwing at it. If that's one thing that I can add to my resume or my accolades of helping shift kind of the thought process on freestyle model, then so be it. I'm happy to be that person, happy to do that, and I'll gladly take those slings and arrows.
Yeah, for sure, man. And all right, so oh man, we're really pushing your time. Special mentions, thank yous, anything like that, Robert? Parting comments?
I mean, first and foremost, the Lord above, got to give it up to him. I mean, that's basically the reason for anything at this point. Didn't grow up that way, and kind of found God through the midst of my career. And I look back on tons of situations where I've gotten hurt or just tough times, and he's always had a hand there. So got to give it up to him, the big man. And then maybe just throw a mention in there for my fabrication stuff too. My kind of exit strategy from freestyle, and like you said, I've been building some ramps over the years, and built some recently for some guys, but just having fun with that. I mean, it's cool. It's something different. Probably the first thing that I've really put a lot of effort into since freestyle, and really trying to hone that skill set, and been building some cool one-off parts for my bike, and sold a few to some other people, and just having fun with that. So right now I've only got the Instagram set up for it, but it's Prairie Fab. If anybody wants to look it up and kind of follow me on there too, you get a little bit of moto and some welding and fabrication stuff.
Yeah, and that is the @ symbol, PRAY. How's the rest of it spelled? Prayer.
ERIE and then FAB.
All one word, right?
All one.
So hit it again, because I screwed it up.
So yeah, it's Prairie Fab. So it's at just prayer, PRAYER, and then IE on the end of that, and then FAB, all one word.
Awesome. Yeah, go to Instagram, check them out. And it's also at Haslam FMX on Instagram. If you need to get a show booked, or you want to have a show booked, he ain't cheap, but he is worth it. You might as well be straight up like, hey, if you want a good show, you're going to pay for it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and definitely it's worth it. So, other than that, any other shout outs, any closing statements?
Man, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people that I could. I mean, obviously you're grouped into that, but I would just say anyone and everyone that's helped me out over the years. I mean, it takes an army or a village for anyone in these positions to get where we are. We definitely don't do it on our own. So it's, couches I've slept on, words of encouragement, just things like that over the years. It's all helped. So I can't say enough about that. And then obviously my family, my wife, my kids, really just humbled to be sitting here still, like I said, doing this all these years and still doing it.
Yeah, and it's great. You got a lot of years left, for sure. And man, it's so cool to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, and we haven't even covered really your philanthropy work. You're working with children's groups and stuff like that. So we will have you back on an episode soon. And I want to cover all that stuff, because there's a lot of do good stuff behind this kid that we didn't even get to cover, but we are up on time. And I know Robert has to scoot. Robert, I just want to say thank you so much. God bless you and your family. I love you guys. And I am forever grateful and thankful that God put us together all those years ago. And that you've been such a great part of my life, and a great helper to me and encourager to me, for all these years. Thank you so much. With that, appreciate you. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Man, how cool was that, Cole?
Oh man, the coolest. He's
Yeah,
I was trying to come up with a summary. Cool and calculated.
he is. He's got a lot of, the way he rides is he's got a lot of years left in this industry for sure. So yeah, that was great. I can't wait to get him back on. But I just want to, of course, we covered Kicker Performance Audio talking about Robert, but our great partners and sponsors, Kicker Performance Audio, Kicker Marine Audio, Kicker Power Sports Audio. Find them at kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio, on Facebook, Kicker. Every other Tuesday night live TV show, Kicker Unmasked Live on YouTube and Facebook. Of course, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, bombereyewear.com. Check them out or find them on Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Be sure when you find the shades you can't live without and you're checking out, in that code, use your MAddOG20 to get your Mad Dog discount. Let them know Mad Dog sent you. BomberEyewear.com. Of course, the Premix podcast and all those desert racing photographs. Next time you're out in the desert racing, look them up, find him, get them lined out to get some shots for you. That's our man Cole at the Premix Podcast. That's the @ symbol, ThePremixPodcast. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film for all your still and video needs, and taking care of all of our video audio production and getting our hot mess tuned up and ready for our YouTube channel. That you'll find them on Mad Dog Media on YouTube. It's Kelsey Morrell Film. Find her on Instagram at Kelsey Morrell Film. Of course, Hey Keeks Marketing, handling our website and our social media backgrounds, templates, stuff like that, and available for all your website needs or social media needs. Yell Hey Keeks. Find her online, heykeeks.com, or on Instagram at Hey Keeks Marketing. Before I close the show tonight, I want to dedicate this show to the memory of the legend and my good friend Jesse Combs. Miss Jessie passed away August 27th, 2019. We are recording August 27th, 2024. Jessie passed away doing exactly what she loved doing and claimed the fastest woman on 4 wheels in the world and a Guinness World Record of a speed of 522.783 miles an hour. I want to refer you all to the Jesse Combs Foundation website. You can find that at the JESSICOMBS Foundation.com. And I want to read a clip that says, I ask that all of you celebrate my life and everything I stand for. I ask that you do everything in your power to share my vision, what I put my entire life on the line for, to reveal to this world what they are capable of by showing them the confidence and abilities they already possess. Miss Jessie Combs. Always remembered, always a legend. Race in peace. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our first responders. God bless our podcast. Mad Dog out.